Thank you, Sandeep. Great to have you. Difficult to
Thanks
catch.
for having me here.
Yeah. So today we want to ask you about largely 5 things. Number one, ecosystem. Number two, founder. Number three, Polygon for sure. Number four, market as a crypto OG. And lastly, general word for students and founders here. Starting with the ecosystem, no one would even question you would have been the largest force behind Indian Web3 ecosystem. You also, not only as a founder, you've been investing in the Web3 startups most actively in the country. So if you compare the Web3 ecosystem in India, let's say in 2016 or 17, when you started Polygon, compare that to now, how would you compare and what do you think has grown a lot?
I mean, definitely like 2018, when we had the first ETH India event, that time there were very few founders and builders who were building from here. And plus also those who were building, including us, it was super difficult to do anything on a global scale. It was super hard to get investments from the investors and things like that. I was telling that the first round of Polygon when we did, we were able to hardly raise like 165K, whereas all the competitors all across the world were raising like 20 to 25 million dollars. So it was super hard. I think that's what has changed now. Now we have a large number of builders and investors like you guys also are open to investing in Indian developers, and that makes me like a little bit happy that people who want to build from here now, they have almost all the resources to build and do bigger things. But one thing that the Indian ecosystem lacks a lot, and the founders lack a lot, is that first of all the mindset becomes to build for the Indian audience, right? Which is, there is a lot of like regulations and things like that. They start working with the local brands and whatnot, and that really doesn't give them any like global exposure as well as the valuations that are there, right? Like it's super hard. And then the other part is that most of the Indian founders lack the marketing firepower, like lack the storytelling with which they can, because this, even though it's super painful to say, like I used to think that in 2018 things will change in 2023 or 5 years from now. Like in 2018 I used to think that people will think more about fundamentals, but it's still very much about the hype and the attention, and still like mimetic. Like most of the valuations in the space are mimetic in nature, and we as Indian founders are not really good. Like not only Indian founders, like I would say overall Asian founders are not good at that. Very few companies have been, like if you leave the exchanges out, there are probably only 2 companies who have done, or 2 projects who have done better. One would be Polygon, one would be Axie Infinity from the Asia side, right? Then maybe there'll be some smaller ones like Band Protocol at one point from Thailand did little bit well, but then they also kind of waned away. For some time in India, Biconomy and Instadapp had some good traction, and they were able to have some narrative outside. But then by and large, it has not been, Indian founders have not been able to do a good job at that. And I'm just coming from a developer focused event, and I was telling a lot of like tech founders who are building the tech, and they think that they think of the marketing role as I will hire some CMO and all that. They don't see the marketing and community building role as a core role. And I told them very bluntly that many of you guys might end up thinking that no, this is like a side role I will hire. But I said that in the short run, Of course, your product is most important, but in the short run, they would have a much bigger impact on the journey of your company. So do not trivialize that role, and and basically take that role seriously. So yeah, ecosystem is now much bigger, much more resources, but still, I think we are just scratching the surface compared to what we have in the US and some of the Western countries.
Yeah, interesting. People in the countries where there's a lack of developers, they may say it's a good problem to have. You just need to worry about narration building, storytelling, while they don't have developers to build products. But anyway, this is something that I also, giving myself a lot of thoughts about. Have you ever questioned yourself why Indian founders generally lack those skills, or they don't think that seriously enough?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I think the reason for that is our education system. So we are, and it is changing a little bit. But when I was growing up, our ecosystem or our education system is more focused on maths, logical reasoning, and all those things. Like it's not focused on storytelling. Whereas in US, I think people grow up knowing about the power of storytelling. People grow up seeing these big leaders like Steve Jobs and many others. In this, even like your class assignments, I have heard for the kids, they would actually ask them to, do the projects, but then you have to do the presentation on the project. Whereas for us, you would do a project and then submit the report, and like more verbose. Even like a lot of people will relate to it. Like even in our classroom, and when we go for the exam, and we used to have subjective exams, teachers will always tell you that don't leave any answer empty. Just write something there. Like, it's more about how many people relate to this thing, right? Like, we are told, like, when you are going to exam, you should not leave anything empty. Just write something there. And what happens is that we are more accustomed to being verbose instead of like, having like a proper concrete hard-hitting story. We are super bad at storytelling, and I think it has all to do with the education system. There are few schools like here also, like now, which are teaching in the international system, but I don't think like they still are as good as or focus that much on storytelling, which is good and bad also, because then in US many times many companies end up becoming like all about branding, right? So, but then if there is a good mix, and you have the skills on both sides, you have the skill to build the product, but you also have the skill to build the storytelling. That's when you really have the,
Right. Yeah. Do you think these skills are what founders have to internalize when they are starting off, or they could find someone who can do a job for them to such an extent?
That's a good question. Like I have a very, something that people will not like, but I think that it is a super hard skill to learn. Like I have been also really bad at that. Like, if you see the story of Polygon, like Polygon is doing Polygon POS, ZK EVM, CDK, this. Like again, you see, like the answer is full of things, but there's no coherent story on that. Obviously, like, I can argue that this all has been like, whatever we are doing is all like step-by-step preparation towards where we want to be. We want to be, like, we don't want to be at Polygon to be like some protocol. Like we want to be one of the biggest protocol in the space. And we refuse to take short-term, kind of technical steps. We had Polygon POS because that time it was whatever, it was ready. But we knew that the long-term thing is that end game is ZK. And that's why we invested so heavily in ZK. And even with the ZK, you have ZK EVM, which is kind of the beginning of the Polygon CDK, beginning of this. The end game for Polygon is going to be this Polygon CDK infinitely growing block space. Like, you won't even be able to compare TPS with Polygon ecosystem overall. Like it will have millions of TPS because as many chains are there, they will launch as many block spaces. But all those block spaces and blockchains need to be, composable with each other, integrated with each other, and that is the aggregator layer. And that's why I keep saying that Polygon is going to be born next year. Like this, we are still day -2 of Polygon. Day -1 is somewhere in January where we announce our LXLY bridge, and day 0 is when we fully launch our aggregator layer. But coming back to that's the Polygon story. But the story could have been slightly better. We could have communicated, see Vitalik, for example, right? He's a genius. Ethereum community is obviously really great, but Vitalik is really, really good at storytelling. Really good at storytelling. You see the splurge, merge, like those 5 roadmaps he given. Previously, it was ETH 2.0, Ethereum merge. So he's able to communicate this roadmap very well with the community, and community knows that where we are heading. And we could have done a better job on that. So the answer to that is, it's super hard to learn that skill. I am trying to learn that skill, but I am afraid to say that skill is not a learned skill. Either you know it or you don't know it, right? Either you, not even know it, either you have it or you don't have it. It's not about knowing. It's about, some people have this knack of this storytelling, but as a I would say, hardworking entrepreneur. I refuse to accept that fact, and I tried to learn that, and I'm trying to do that. So slowly, hopefully, I'll reach there.
Got it. Yeah, interesting. But do you see a change in the trend? I mean, you are, as long as I know, one of the most active angel investors globally in the Web3 space, and maybe by far the most active angel investor in the country. But do you see a change in the trend in the founder profile or founder capacity? If you compare that to 2-3 years ago and now, or that overall, weaknesses kind of stay the same?
I think my angel investments mostly are in Indian founders only, because obviously when we were in 2017-18 here, it was very hard to build. And I was just telling a story, we even had one Indian fund leader in some global fund, and when we were saying that we are going to raise $5 million, and this was already 1/5 of whatever our competitor had raised, and we were given an answer that, why do you need $5 million? You are in India, developers are cheap. You can have 10 developers in 1 crore rupees, which is 150K. And that was the thing. And for me, when I used to go to these global events, we were never even invited to the, kind of core events, right? Or where the main people are. And we had to break the doors in the long run, right? And for me, I always thought that, we will bring, because I'm a lot about India, right? And obviously, like a lot of people here, patriotic Indian, I big believer of our culture and heritage and everything. So I always thought that we should have better resources for Indian founders. And me angel investing is kind of trying to do something on that front, because looking at me, some people, other funds are also able to invest into the projects, and some of them were able to get good money to build something. But I am also slightly, again, disappointed with a lot of Indian founders. I would have wasted a lot of my money on that, maybe double-digit millions maybe. And but then most of the founders were able to build products, but they were never able to break into the global narrative. And again, it's about the storytelling, it's about the marketing, it's about how you are able to take your story on a global stage and play that out. And that's where we have failed. I think most of the people were able to build good products, but nobody was able to properly build and market their product.
Got it, yeah. Sounds like there's room for improvement on that front.
Absolutely.
I think you briefly touched upon Polygon. If we go back to that, can you share your next year goal or target for Polygon ecosystem in general? And in the long term, how do you want Polygon to be remembered by people, let's say globally or even in India? How do you want Polygon to be remembered in the long term? If you can start from the, let's say, next year first.
Which one I can start?
Next year?
Next year,
Yes.
yes. So next year, as I said, that is the first day like Polygon gets born, which is the full version of Polygon's like product vision, which is this infinitely growing block space with these multiple CDK blockchains and all of them interconnected with each other with this aggregator layer, and that is the Polygon, like the infrastructure we call Polygon, and that's what I'm excited about. About what Polygon should be remembered. You remember things which are dead, actually. So I don't want Polygon to be dead. I want Polygon to be the protocol which ends up becoming the TCP/IP of the internet, right? So, so that's the main goal for me. Like, how do we make Polygon or grow Polygon in a way that it becomes that penetrates into the fabric of this new internet 3.0, and that's what we are working towards. I think that the architecture that we have, obviously I'm going to be biased, but I've spoken to so many researchers who have worked on this multi-chain, cross-chain thesis and all that, and everybody has told me that whenever you analyze any of these multi-chain and interchain connectivity architectures, be it any of these alt L1s or L2s and all that, in every architecture you are able to find loopholes. Like, and obviously many people know that I'm not a believer of monolithic chains, like one single chain having 10,000 TPS, 20,000, 50,000. I don't care even if it's like 1 million TPS. Is it going to take care of the entire Web3 of the whole world? No. And this also having everyone in one single architecture, assuming that all the world will exist in one single architecture, is more of a communist thought process. Like, everyone has one system and then everybody lives in this system. Everybody has to live in the system. I don't think the world grows in that. The world always grows in a capitalist mindset, free market system. And layer 2s provide you that free market systems where you can have these multiple layer 2 chains. You can have different kind of VMs, you can have different kinds of privacy features, you can have different kinds of decentralization features. All those things are possible customization. And I am like a staunch believer, and I can bet, like, if somebody wants to bet, I can bet like $1 million or even more than that, that in the long enough time frame, none of these monolithic architectures are going to exist. And whoever will win, maybe it's some other alt L1, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the eventual architecture which ends up becoming the architecture which becomes this Internet 3.0, that architecture will have to be very similar to the way the layer 2s are built. That there is one layer which is a strong and highly decentralized layer, and then you have these custom execution environment built on top of that. And that's what we believe for Polygon. And I believe that if we are able to sustainably build two things, like obviously build these high performance chains, which are dedicated chains for applications, and we are able to achieve interoperability between these chains, which is almost seamless and which is possible with ZK, we will be able to have that architecture which scales Web3 to the internet level scale. And we are progressing in that, and I'm pretty bullish on that. It's still like a 5 to 10 year game, but that's where like we are here for the long run. It will take 5 years, but when it fully materializes, it will be a juggernaut in itself.
Yeah. I hear you. Great spirit and energy. As a crypto OG, I don't think we have much time left. As a crypto OG, do you have any comment on the current market situations? Things are a little,
Yeah, I mean, it's not about like, I think when we are in crypto, we pay too much attention into the local crypto narratives, and which is fine also. That's what most of the people in the crypto industry are about, like, this trading and gossiping and all that. And that's good, that's all fun. But I think like the markets are always determined by the larger macro forces also. And we have like the biggest macro force last year also, like, when all of these things were there, right? It's not like in last 2 months, suddenly the infrastructure or suddenly the fundamentals have come into crypto. It's all about the macro markets. People now know that Fed has basically topped out on the rates, and there's no way that they're going to increase it any further. And somewhere in the next year they would start tapering it down. So the risk capital has started coming into the market, and some of that risk capital obviously is going to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has two big events, which is obviously the Bitcoin halvening cycle, as well as the ETP or ETF. And due to that, this market look bullish. Another thing is also that Q4 is always historically very bullish, and then these things come back to the reality in the Q1, Q2, and I think that's what we will probably also see. I think Q1, Q2 might again be a little bit depressed, because right now is just too much of volatility in the market. And then again, it's good to bring in new people, but the new people come in and then they again buy the top. That's why I always recommend everyone that don't be a trader, be an investor. And whatever price you get in, even if you got in 2017, 18 at the top for Bitcoin, let's say at $19,000, if you are still holding, you will still be in 2-3x profit today if you are not trading. So just take fundamental positions, and then don't be too much of a trader.
Got it. Yeah. Given the time we have, I'll ask you a last question. Any final words for builders and students in this conference? I mean, you talked enough about the story building skills, or the capacity. But any other comment for those who
Yeah. So I mean, both at Polygon and for me personally also, I have to accept that I've been more into the quantity mode. Basically with Polygon also, we had a lot of EVM, dApp builders and all that, and we wanted to support a lot of people all across the globe, and especially we have a soft corner towards India. Because of obviously reasons. And I also supported a lot of people, whoever is doing something, okay, this looks like a serious person, not doing a scam and all that, I will just, give them angel investment, okay, figure it out, experiment and figure it out. I think now we are at a place where I want to focus more on the quality. Personally, in my personal incubations, many people might know that we have this Symbolic Capital, Polygon Ventures, then we have Beacon Accelerator. Beacon Accelerator is also doing really good quality stuff, as you might also know. This current cohort, I think out of 10, maybe 5 of them will be easily unicorn in a matter of 6 to 12 months. And then I have this Nailwal Fellowship, where I give 50K for 6 months to any founder who wants to figure out and try and test their idea, build their MVP and things like that. And there also we are extremely focused on quality now. And this you will see in all the Polygon events. These will be highly technical events or founder specific events. And these will be also very, I should say, selective in nature. And so anybody who wants to get into that sphere and wants to get help from Polygon Labs, or me personally, you have to level up the game. You have to be very deliberate in what you are building, very deliberate in your research, very deliberate in your technology, and that's where we want to put the bets.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks a lot for sharing your experiences and your time with us today. Yeah. Thank you.